Good afternoon, respected dignitaries, professors, and classmates. I hope you had a very refreshing lunch today and came back with same enthusiasm as we started this morning. As we are moving to the next part of this lattice, which is the panel on HR. So we are moving in this panel discussion. We are focusing on the theme that touches all of us very closely, and the theme is Skill 2030. If the morning was about how industries are adapting to AI era, this afternoon is about the people, the talent, the leaders, and the workforce of tomorrow. In a world where technology is advancing at breakneck speed, what skills remain relevant? How should organizers prepare their people for jobs that don't yet exist? And equally important, how do we nurture human qualities of creativity, empathy, and conscience alongside digital fluency? With this, I would like to first invite on stage moderator for this panel, Professor Dharma Raju Bethany. Professor Dharma is an associate professor at IIM Calcutta and faculty coordinator of the Case Research Center. With experience in HRM, organizational behavior, and future of work, he brings a unique blend of academic depth and industry experience to moderate our second panel. Please give a huge round of applause for our panel moderator, Professor Dharma Raju. Now let me please help me welcome our first panelist, Mr. Amit Deo. Mr. Amit Deo, he is the head of executive recruitment, India and APEC region, BNY Mellon. He is a seasoned HR leader with deep expertise in global talent acquisition, executive hiring, and employer blending. Please give a huge round of applause for Mr. Amit Deo. With this, please help me welcome Mr. Abraham KP, our next panelist. Mr. Abraham KP is an analytics and AI leader at Adani Enterprises. He has over 20 years of experience in driving enterprise-scale AI-powered transformation, bringing deep expertise in analytics and digital technology with strategic leadership. He partners with C-suites to deliver measurable values. With this, please help me welcoming our final panelist for the speaker, Mr. Vishwanath Raju. Mr. Vishwanath Raju is an international award-winning HR leader with 20+ years experience in global talent acquisition, strategy, and has positioned AI-driven HR maturity models at a larger scales. Please give a huge round of applause for all the panelists who are present today. With this, I would like to hand over the stage to Professor Dharma Raju to take this panel discussion forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A very warm good afternoon to all of you who are taking the time out to attend this. And also, first of all, I'm very grateful to all three of you for taking the time to be in Calcutta and to give your experience to our students. Right? So this is a topic, in some sense, which is deeply personal also. When I teach, I keep asking my students, if you're not losing your sleep over what is happening or the rapid pace at which things are progressing in AI, perhaps you're not taking things as seriously, right? There was a time when all of us used to think that, blue-collar work will get automated, robotized, their jobs will be taken away. There were times when we used to think that creativity is deeply human, or what separates humans from machines is creativity, right? But all of those things seem to have either been turned upside down or have changed a lot in the recent past, right? When we talk about hallucination, is it so different from human creativity? Is it the blue-collar jobs that are so much at stake than the white-collar jobs, right? These are some of the issues, and how do we cope with all of these? That is what I, along with these panelists here, hope to cover. Before we begin, perhaps if you have any introductory remarks about this, we could go ahead with those, or we can straight away start with the questions also, if any of you have any comments on it.
So no introductory remark, but I think AI is more enabler. So let's embrace it. Thank you.
Right? Okay, so we'll begin with the questions. So the first question is largely in the first part. We'll try to look at what is happening right now in the industry, right? So when you look at your own experience, what are the things that are happening about AI? Is it about helping people? Is it about replacing? So what kind of discussions are going down right now?
I think it's a very broad topic, and ever since in the morning, I think all of us, I was there at the, at the audience side, and a lot of it has already been spoken. And one thing that we have clearly noticed, including the panelist itself, is the 60% even in that first panel that they spoke and touched upon, was the human aspect of it. So AI is all about human, and I can't imagine it without, the human. So let's go a little, a step down at the fundamental level, that what it is for. To simply put, it is to actually enable us to deliver more with probably the resources that we already have at hand. And therefore, they're talking about how to put AI to the right use so that you could actually focus on more and more strategic and more high value, sort of deliverables in your job. And therefore, and that's how you will be, rather than be able to deliver a more specific value to your customer or your client, right? So therefore, I would say that what's happening in the industry, this is what is happening. That's number one. Number two, where are we on this journey? I think we're still at a primitive stage. There's a lot of these things that we're talking about. There's a organization that comes and say in the AI and related technology area or arena is that we are going to be launching this version of our product, and then it is going to start delivering X. But that doesn't still seem to be happening exactly the way that they have envisaged it. Of course, for a variety of different challenges that we are still, gaining our own conscious about. But ultimately, it's more important that we are clearly understanding that we need to embrace it for our own betterment as an individual professional, and embrace it for betterment of the people who we serve as the mission of our organization.
Would it be possible to kind of give some specific instance, maybe from your experience, not the industry per se, but from your experience of, okay, this initiative has been taken, and this is the kind of impact that was
I can quickly think of two examples. One is, I'm a HDFC Bank customer, and I have a chatbot right now talking to me for anything which seemed to be more transactional, about a specific query that I have on my account, or a certain help that I need to really update my KYC, or anything with respect to I really need to talk to someone who is a human, a banking representative. My first touch point with a bank is that. And that it is actually helping me to ensure that I'm talking to the right person in the first instance itself. So it is making super efficient both for the bank and even for me as a customer, and the experience that I'm getting. The second, which is a quite stark, on the other side of the example, is the teleport nurses that I'm not sure how many of us have heard about it. Right. That is the model today where I have heard that the nurses are actually providing the necessary care or a critical care through different digital channels, through telecommunication channels. It could be telephone, it could be video conference, providing the necessary information to whosoever is the care taking on the ground, and including, some of those patients who do not really have an access to that care. So these are the things which are actually touching us today. It's not that what we are envisaging and talking about that it'll happen tomorrow or it'll happen in 2027. It's been happening real time, and I would say that it's here.
Right. Yeah. Do you want to add anything?
So let's take example of talent acquisition. So I'm sure you're hearing a lot about talent acquisition through AI. So we have seen some installations where hiring managers verbatim of job description creates a job advert through AI. I'll use through AI so that you understand where I'm coming from. Then the job advert can create a Boolean through AI. And the Boolean goes to all those sites that you would want to go through cognitive computing, through AI. Then those applications go to candidates like you and me, and we apply through AI. And when we apply, based on the job description, it creates some screening questions automatically. And those screening questions come on your WhatsApp. You respond through AI. And then based on that ranking of your resume, ranking of your, the responses, it will give you a scoring through AI. So when a hiring manager raises a request yesterday, today morning he already has 4 people that he has to talk to. And if you see that this is science fiction, this is happening as we speak. 13% of the companies that we are supporting is already, this is happening already, right? So that's what the penetration of AI is. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Do you want to add anything to that?
See, again, taking a slightly different point of view on this, the thing is, there's a lot of uncertainty, let's say in the minds of young job seekers like yourself, or even in companies in terms of what value can be done. So as my fellow panelists and the professor also mentioned, there's a lot that happens, there's a lot that can be done, but as individuals, or let's say as job seekers in the market, what's also important is understanding how these systems work. So I think, as we move ahead, and with more and more anecdotes that will definitely come up through the course of this, I think it will become clear that there is an unknown, but it's not an unknown that you need to really be afraid of.
Sure, thank you.
So I'll just add, ATS friendly resume, AI friendly resume is something that you will hear soon.
Sure, okay. So now that we have talked about this whole notion of uncertainty, or we have also partly addressed this question of should there be concern or fear, etc. So how do we get ready for the future? What kind of skills? So we have many of those young mid-career professionals here. So what would be the kind of advice you would give to them? How do they cope with it? What do they need to learn? What do they need to develop looking into the future?
See, throughout your careers, you're going to encounter a lot of disruptors. Things that change the way business is run, the way jobs are searched for, people apply, find them, work, perform, etc. And AI is not the last in the series. There's going to be a lot more coming down the line. But specifically for the way that we understand AI today, I would say there are primarily 3 things that we all need. The first one is you need to have what I would say intellectual curiosity. It's more of a trait, but in terms of, if you look at it as a skill, it is your ability to be continuously looking at what's new in the market, what's new in different areas of technology, and how could it impact our day-to-day life or our future lives as we anticipate it. The second one is about maintaining the spirit of learnability. That is, can you continuously learn new things? Because even in our workplace, we often see that not everybody has the answer to everything, but the team member who really shines is the one who can quickly research, maybe not in an academic sense, but search for a solution, find something, find the tool, and the grifters basically, the ones who can come up with solutions. And finally, what all of this ends up in is something which at least in a few of my past organizations we called digital dexterity. That is, are you dexterous enough? Are you familiar enough with different tools? Can you use it to solve the problems that could come up in day-to-day life? Because this whole moment of, there's a word called Luddite in English, which is somebody who would be opposed to technology or opposed to a change. So there's no point in saying averse to technology or avoiding it, because sooner or later you will have to. The whole world is changing, you will have to. So being dexterous in terms of digital technologies is something that helps. So just to recap, the 3 things would be curiosity, learnability, and dexterity in the digital sense.
I'll just add, there are 3 types of things according to me from an opportunity standpoint. One is opportunities, good opportunities, and great opportunities. Sitting in one of the finest institutions in India, opportunities are always there with you. Don't worry about it. But if you want good opportunities, then you have to have, how do I search better, right? Then you land up into good opportunities where you can talk to them and all. Great opportunities only will come when you start thinking about how organizations are shifting towards new generation technologies and all that, and you create a USP for yourself and say that, hey, this is an opportunity that I'm giving it to you to hire me to solve your problem. In fact, when I was part of one of the tech companies, one of the interns sent a note to me saying that, I feel your marketing engine is broken. I can fix it. My marketing head gave that guy an opportunity to talk, and he was able to crack. There was no role at all in that organization. So great opportunities will only come when you really think about how I have to think about this organization. what kind of personalities they are hiring, would I fit this organization or not, what kind of challenges they are facing, do I have some knowledge about the challenges that they are facing in the next 5 years or not, do I have analytical information about that. So when you go and talk about it, they are only hearing good song like they want, and then they already decided that they will hire you, right? So great opportunities will only come somebody who is very bold and who can use technology, as he said. Thank you.
Great. With this, I want to kind of get into some more specifics of that. I'll go back to my earlier statement where I said, if you're not losing sleep over this, are you doing enough? What I mean is, all of us, our capabilities are intellectual capabilities in some sense, which more and more we are seeing that the AIs are able to do it, right? Structured, logical thinking, that's one aspect, let's say even on the creativity side. They're able to make those connections which we are not able to kind of make. So if the machines are able to do that, so I agree with your points about learnability, etc. But how do we think about future? In some sense, for example, I'm trying to relate to your question about how do we see those opportunities given there is so much uncertainty about what would be those opportunities itself? So is there a way to address or to kind of structure or think about those questions?
Do you want to take that, Abraham?
I'll take. So World Economic Forum is a great resource for me, and they give this every 5 years, if I'm not wrong, future jobs kind of a thing, right? So interestingly, they also talk about what it takes to do that also, right? So since your course is only 2 years, so you don't need to worry about it. But if in case you are doing an engineering, which is 4 years, and that's good enough time for us to completely change the whole equation, right? So that is one way of looking at it. Second way of looking at it is, how do I do better job than, how do I do this job better than somebody else at a quicker, faster rate kind of a thing. These are two dimensions I can use. One is, if somebody is creating a go-to-market strategy and building a $5 million revenue in 2 years, can I do it in 1 year is one way of looking at it. Second way of looking at it is, okay, so now that I want to make this $5 million revenue in 1 year, is there a way that I can use technology and make it 6 months? So that's the second dimension that we can look at it. Thank you.
If you can go a little back in time, let's say about 1,500 years ago, if you look at the origins of the modern university system that we have, what started off in classical Europe, which was again an evolution from the Greek system. So they had the subjects called the trivium and the quadrivium. So these are the basics of the liberal arts. Now the trivium basically had three things. One was grammar, the other was logic, and the third was rhetoric. Now when we speak about logic is what we try to understand today as reasoning. Now grammar is the rules of how do we engage, how do we write something, how do we express something. And the third one is definitely rhetoric. It's how do you message something. Now, if you really look at what AI is trying to do, by and large, it still falls into these three things. So all I'm trying to say is these three were problems which they believe that students in a university about 1,300 years ago needed to know, and they're still topics that we are trying to solve. So as such, while definitely, if you want to look at the immediate future and see what's going to be the jobs at risk, definitely the forecast and the projections would help. But any skill which requires these things, that is reasoning, as Professor himself mentioned, the second would be cognition. Now you can talk about recognizing something, recognizing a pattern, identifying a pattern or forecasting that. And anything that involves, the third thing, that is rhetoric, that's messaging or what would be generative AI. Any job which has a significant component of these three things definitely is at risk of being replaced by an AI agent. But that said, I would really say it's not really a cause for alarm, because again, this is one of the cartoons that I'd seen recently. It's about a person talking to a horse. And this is in a farm where horses are used to pull the plow, and there's a tractor in the background. And it says that the horse is not going to lose its job to the tractor, but the horse is going to lose its job to the horse that learns how to ride a tractor. So you're not going to lose your job to this, you would lose it to another human being who knows how to use AI. So I think that really should be some kind of reassurance.
Sure. Yeah. So that basically brings me to the next question on, so skilling. In terms of course, an advice to them on what skills they should focus, that is one. But again, from the industry point of view, what are the skills that you're trying to build? how are you identifying those skills? For example, when you said about learnability, etc. So what are you doing both on, let's say, in terms of identifying talent and developing that talent? I'll leave it open to any of you.
Yep. So, a couple of things. I think calling it as a skill in singularity may not really do the complete justice to it. Uh, I would really break this down in two parts essentially. One is where you really first of all get yourself to be called as AI literate. And to literate meaning you at least are aware of what that is all about, how does it work, what are the case studies of where it has helped, how it has helped, and where are the cases where it is still evolving. So at least when you're really thinking within your own self and you're now going to the step two, by that you at least have the basic and the fundamental resources to be able to really interpret it in the way that it is supposed to be. So that becomes a foundation. And the second piece is where you actually go more methodical. And I think with this approach, in my experience, I've seen that it rather takes away a large part of the stress away. How is what the key? Now, I think a part of that has been covered in some of the other panel, the earlier panel discussion, and that is identify the AI libraries for yourself. But after identifying the AI libraries, what do you do with those? It's like you're in a job, in a certain job, identify what and where could you actually use AI. How would the output look like? How would you actually be able to validate that output across multiple different scales? It could be efficiency, how much time within which you could really deliver what you could otherwise, have handled that and delivered it manually, like the way that you do it in a conventional way. The second aspect is where what is the quality of the output that you're getting, and the third is it limited in its scope to be able to handle a complexity up to a certain extent. This is going to be a first part after you identify the AI library. The second step rather, is going to be where you start actually using it. And that's when you understand that how good or not good are you. Because you realize that when you start failing it. And I think that I would imagine to you being an AI practitioner, the start of your journey starts when you are actually failing in your first, second, third, fourth, fifth instance. Once you start failing, you start learning at the each failure instance. You keep applying that learning back, and then it becomes a closed loop until the time that you start seeing that this is how it works, and you, without, it becomes so unintentional that whether you're across the table with your customer or your leader or your co-colleague or your co-worker, you are actually speaking very passionately about it because you actually have practiced it. You have had a hands-on experience on it, and that is not an episodal, curriculum course or a training that you have to really remember that what was written at, at that, sort of module of that learning. But here you have actually done it, and you would really be able to exercise the same approach every time that you have to use AI for a second thing now you're wanting to do. Now, the third step, which is going to be even more important from your point of view, is when you really start understanding the ethical aspect of it. That what are you supposed to use it? What is that thin line that you ideally should not look at crossing? And then really start also learning a lot about what not to do. That's when I think you become an AI practitioner or an AI user in complete sense.
I think most of it you added, but I'll give you an example. How many of you have role models in your life? Okay. Just keep it hand raised for some time. Put your hand down if you don't have mentors. Okay. Okay. So you have role model and you have mentor. Very good. How many have done this social experiment with any of this OpenAI, right? So did you ask OpenAI that can you rate my prompt? 1 out of 10? You've done that? So what was the rating it gave? 7, 8, right? But did you ask this question that, okay, if you have to rate me to the top 1% of the people who use ChatGPT, did you do that? Okay, what was the answer? Okay. So the next question technically you should ask is, how do I become 1%? Right? By doing that, you will automatically make your AI agent your coach. Right? Now, take an example. I have a mentor, I have AI coach. I'm always monitoring mentorship aspects and AI mentorship. I'm validating this model to this model, this model to this model. That's when I'm combining both human being and technology. You do this exercise exactly for 1 month, you will see that learning that you wanted to, you're already in the step 1 of that learning. And that's the way you should look at it. Thank you.
Right. So let me add a couple of things there. Uh, how many of you have actually asked the AI to write the prompt itself?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So in terms of asking it to rate your own prompt versus the AI creating the prompt itself, right? So that is where I see. So that's where the uncertainty. For example, if you have mastered all of this prompt engineering, you've spent a lot of time learning about it, etc. And then a point in time, you come to a point in time where the AI can itself write that particular prompt for you. Or what am I missing in all of this discussion? Is there a key assumption that I'm missing that whatever I have learned about prompt engineering so far, if I've spent so much of time, is not as useful given that at this point in time, the AI itself, I can make the AI itself write the prompt. I think this is the crux of the question that I'm trying to drive at when we're talking about skilling. What is skill in that sense? Or what is it about the obsolescence of a particular skill as we grow? Because that is where perhaps there is this whole uncertainty is there, right? So that if you have any of you have any comments on that, perhaps feel free.
I would say that it is all about augmenting. So if you go to a boardroom and a CEO is talking about AI and his people, on the organization, it's never really, or rather it's less about replacing people, but it's more about augmenting it. So, to that specific question, and maybe I'm not probably able to really add, do the justice to your question as much you're expecting, but I think it's at the individual level that you need to identify. It's like, going back to basics. Let's take a step back. How many of you in your respective jobs have heard of job description? Right? So many hands. It's like a kid would know these days. But how many of you have heard of a term called job profile? Right? 1, 2, 3, probably 4, maybe. I think it's going back to that fundamental level. A job description tells you about a para about who we are as an organization, maybe a purpose of the job if it is a beautifully articulated JD. It will tell you what the KPI and the responsibility of the job is, and then a qualification. But then a job profile has nothing to do with all of these things in its own construct, broadly and in fundamental. What does a job profile do is at a particular job is being then built for a job profile across different career levels. What are those career levels are signifying when you're moving from a manager to a senior manager level as a promotion? That is what the job profile comes into picture. So it's like if you're at a manager level and if you are a sales manager, you are required to hold certain set of core competencies in your job. And a job profile says that if you are applying or if you're being considered for a sales manager job at a manager cadre within the hierarchical framework that your organization has, these are the 4 competencies, and each of those 4 competencies require a level of proficiency for each of those for you to qualify to be in that job. To going back to your question, we could probably have this as a reference point, is that if I am aware of my job profile, it helps me understand that I rather focus on something which is more humane skill, adaptability, creative thinking, leadership, empathy, all of this, change management, agile learning, all of this I would rather focus my energy on that, and anything and everything which is more transactional, which probably where I could clearly start using AI more and more about, that helps me to probably do a lot more, or work that I could really create much deeper impact for my customer and my client, is what could be a starting point, is what I would say, to identify what that skill is all about. Because I don't think that in AI, there is one such singular skill like a Java that I go back and tell you, saying that, hey, there is this course, AY stroke XYZ, and then you start doing it from tomorrow, day after tomorrow, you're good. At least, that's what I think. I mean, if you really want to throw
Absolutely.
some more light on.
Yeah, if I could just add a point, adding a bit of nuance to this, it's not just about a skill. Sometimes it's about a technique. Like, you just need to know how to use a tool. That is what, I would largely call as a technique. The skill largely, again, drawing from the earlier panel discussion also we had, where this question of ROI keeps coming up. I'm investing so much money. So in a lot of projects that I've been part of also, the key challenge is, what is the business value? Dollar value, rupee value, as you would say. Now, it's also important to always be mindful of this fact that if I'm using AI to solve a problem or to improve, is there a quantifiable, is there a tangible benefit from it? It could be in the present, it could be in the immediate future, or maybe in the far future, but still, is it tangible becomes a question. So this ability to see end-to-end, looking ahead in time, definitely is a skill that comes in handy. Maybe not really in applying AI, but definitely in getting buy-in for your projects or your tasks.
So I'll just add one more aspect to it. So when you look at any interview, in general, my thesis says that interviews to reject and not shortlist, because I have 10 people and I only have one job, right? But then when you are looking at the skill at level 1, then adding technology on top of it, and on top of it, if you're able to give business context to it, there are more chances that the person will like you, right? So the guy who's just put skills on top of it may or may not be liked by the company, but then somebody who adds little bit of technology element of, okay, what have been your learnings and all that stuff? Hey, I've learned this technology. Okay, fine. So what did you do? I've not done anything. Okay, fine. So somebody says that, okay, I learned this technology yesterday and I was playing around with this and then I solved this problem. And incidentally, I saw that one of your engineers also, I read in internet about one of the products that you're building. I may be a very great example for that kind. That makes them feel that, okay, you have done good research about the company and you have some business context. Opportunity for you to get into the organization is very, very high. That's the thought process that beyond whatever is added by my colleagues. Thank you.
Sure. So let's pick on this thread of augmenting, right? So how do you enable AI, or how do you enable people to use AI to augment their existing works? So have there been any kind of instances in your industry experience that you have seen? So these are the things that we have done to help people in this particular process. Right?
We had one example, very interesting, that we have done, and we're going for patent for that. Is that when an interview happens, right? There is this for everything there is data in the world. Agree? So there is nothing that you can do better than what is already available, right? So the recruiter who is not a technical recruiter, assuming that the person is actually interviewing a product manager, he needs to understand product management questions, which is not in the case in this situation. So you can be prompted those questions, right? That can be done by AI, which is implemented. And AI will listen to the response of the individual and will tell or prompt the recruiter to either ask the next question or the follow-up question if it doesn't understand the way the person is responding, right? And there are two things which are happening automatically. One, technical recruiter is doing almost the job of a hiring manager, which is elevating the job of a technical recruiter. Second is, you are able to get somebody who is thinking that if the recruiting team itself is so talented, what kind of organization that I'm joining, right? So that kind of implementation we've already done, and we were able to curtail a lot of talent time, both for recruiters and also the hiring managers, and we were able to get some success there. There is the algorithm is still refining, but we were able to curtail a lot of time. It's real implementation happened already with us.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe just to add a small point here, depending on the kind of job that you perform, AI could play different roles. For example, if a job is primarily about validating something or ensuring compliance to a certain standard or guideline, definitely, there could be automation programs or AI agents that actually take care of it, which would help you do it. And you would need to look at, what exactly, or what is the work package that you do, and then you identify as to what would be the best way to automate it, let's say for yourself or your teammates. But on the other hand, if the job actually involves something involving reasoning or justification for something, now that is where the ability, I would say we are advanced, really far ahead, but still you cannot really remove the human from the loop. The human should still be in the loop just to ensure that, the hallucination does not end up in a nonsensical solution as such.
So I would like to go back a step here because you mentioned about human in the loop and all of that. So, and I'm proposing maybe perhaps ideas which I have myself read somewhere to see, if there is any response in that. My reading says that there are two things, especially on the skill side, which are becoming more important. Previously, perhaps it was your ability to answer questions that were asked. All of us, in some sense, are trained to answer questions that are posed at us. So nowadays, we read more about the ability to ask the right questions. Okay. So what I keep in my reading, I see that this is perhaps a skill that could become more important as we go. If there are any comments on that aspect. Two, it's about articulation, and perhaps when I say articulation here right now, especially in the Indian context, perhaps it's largely limited to articulation in a particular language, which is English. So somewhere else I've also read about the new programming language is English. Because anybody can simply kind of type and then you have something else to convert it into actual code, right? So an ability to articulate, which is what I think in some sense is an aspect of context engineering, not full of that context engineering, is about the ability to articulate your thoughts in a way that others understand or even AI understand. So I'm thinking more on the skill side. If any of you have anything to add on that, that would be great.
It's an out of syllabus question, but let me try. So I think in my experience, 10 years back, if you were hiring, we would look at somebody who is asking all the right questions for the job or what happens and all that stuff, right? And in the systematic way of looking at it. Then maybe 5 years back, and I said, this is my experience. So you are asking this problem. Tell me, do you have a solution? If somebody could able to give me 80% of the solution, the person is hired. Nowadays, we are looking at, hey, this is a problem you have, and I have a solution. The mindset has changed, at least in the. So let's say, let me ask you this question. So I'm sure many of you have heard about somebody getting a 1.25 CR opportunity with a Facebook, Microsoft, and all that, right? So a lot of people read that and then just leave it. If you go back to that student and ask that person, how did you get 1.25? You'll get the answer, which is slightly different than, so he or she is not the same software engineer which can solve the same software engineering problem. He has seen an opportunity, a code which is broken, and only he can solve that. And that's how he got it. It's just not because of the marketing stunt. Some companies do that, but some ethical companies actually go back and get the guy on board because if he can do this for Meta, he can also do it for Google. So that is where you have to create value for yourself. Why would organizations should come and hire you? They should spot you. How they can spot you is by the kind of work that you do on your projects, by the kind of literature that you put on your papers, by the kind of LinkedIn impressions that you're creating. Then you can ask what you want to ask. I think that's the mindset you should look at. I'm not talking about arrogance part of it, it's about skill building part of it, right? That's the way you should think about it. Thank you.
Right. So now that I think we have some idea about this whole scaling issue, we could perhaps move on to the next item, which is about the impact of AI or the side effects about ethics or social impact or mental well-being, etc. Yep.
I think it's a transformation, and every transformation really brings a specific set of important aspects that we need to always be mindful of and consider throughout our journey. And I think that keeps evolving. One of that is clearly, as Professor just mentioned, about mental well-being, the ethics, and the social impact. So I would say that this is the most important thing from a point of view of we are looking at it beyond AI being a technology transformation. And that's where we then start acknowledging it, saying that the impact is also going to be beyond technology and the infrastructure. It's going to be real, on us as human beings. So to begin with, McKinsey World Economy Forum, both of them, they have really brought it out in their researches that there's a term called um, agility, change fatigue, if I remember it correct. I think that was a very, very specific term that they had called it out time and again. And they were saying that there's a constant pressure that the surveys have clearly called out as the findings on all of us, that there is a constant pressure on being adaptable and having to learn new things that what we probably did not know earlier. I was talking to one of my key stakeholders a few weeks back, and he was saying, he was talking to someone else, and I was just listening to it. It was quite interesting is that even before you're out of your weekend, sort of time that you have probably had a long weekend and you're still coming out of that vacation mood, uh, Monday morning you've been given to understand that there's something that you've completely missed about AI. There are 3 people that are talking about, have you heard of this and not, and you're like in a boardroom sort of a scenario, I'm just making it up. And you're completely out of it because you did not know what has happened. So literally every single week, there's a new LLM that is coming up. There's a new tool that is coming up. There's a new application that is coming up. There's a new term that is coming up. And you sometimes, or more oftentimes, could really find yourself left overwhelmed. And therefore, to cope up with that pressure, what is more important is agility learning. So you keep telling yourself, I think all of us, we have grown, and that's like almost like a Stone Age sentence now that the change is only constant. I would say now that you add one more word over there is that change and adaptability is constant now. That's the way forward that we have to really keep telling ourselves. It's like the way that we have been saying post-COVID, this is the new normal, and this is the new normal for us within the AI space. So we will have to really accept it, embrace it, because that's the way forward. Now, how do we cope up with that is, like I said, agility learning is because when you take that learning in small bites, it doesn't really build that stress. But if you really do not put in that conscious effort, and likewise, I just go back to my initial answer is that you go step by step, have those small wins, and number of such small wins is what will really add in reducing the stress, but at the same time building confidence, and then you keep doing that more and more. Now, the second part is, when you talk about the social aspect of it, and this is more from a individual leader and even from an organization aspect, is that we need to be more inclusive onto our journey of AI. It cannot be just looked at like one size fits all sort of a perspective. We need to have a tailor-made or a specific training programs, learning curves, support system that needs to be identified for early talent to mid-career to some of the others, as well, who are like returning women to work. Some of those have been at the sabbatical and are not there in the job market, are coming back to the work. I think we need to be more inclusive even from that aspect standpoint where there is a social impact on it. And the last part is, which is what we talk about, again, the mental health is like, there's a massive responsibility on the leaders, and that's something which is not optional. That's the reality. And that is, if the leaders are not acknowledging the uncertainty around the AI, and if they're really not normalizing the experimentation and making that almost like a culture, it's going to be difficult for people to start accepting the direction that you're giving in your AI adoption journey. That's going to be very, very important, and therefore all of this then contributes to the mental health as well, where people are no longer having a fear of being judged. And that's what me and Abraham, we were speaking over the coffee, is that if he's doing well, being my coworker in probably applying AI into one of the tasks, example, and I am really not able to catch up, I probably prefer to keep quiet. I probably prefer not to really talk much about it. because I have a fear that if I go back and I ask this question, it might really be seen, sorry to use this word, but I might be really seen, someone who is like very, very inefficient or stupid. But I think we really need to come out of that fear because fear is human. And anything human is not going to be addressed by money or by training or by budget or by just a curriculum or some manuals. It needs to be handled like the way we talk to each other and we give that each other, that confidence to each other at the end of the day. And the last part is where leaders will really be required to admit that they had their own sets of failures as well when they started off with this journey. They need to own it up. They need to really be vocal about it and say that, and share that rather, that yes, this was the number of times that there was a failure. This was how the learning curve had been, and this is where I am, and I am still learning. I think when you have that, it really covers, the complete locus right from point A to point Z, touching upon the culture, the mindset, everything.
There's another skill competence called cognitive flexibility. I'm sure many of you have heard about it, but then the way I explain that is that in the concept that you are very happy about, knowledgeable about, you will be, you will have a lot of energy to do that. But then in the concept or the knowledge that you don't have, right, can you be as flexible and as cognitive so that you give 100% to the second task also? In the whole task that you need to do 10 tasks, you will not like third or fourth task, but then you have to be equally, interested in that task also. That actually makes you to feel that, okay, fine. So, and one other thing that I learned hard way is that I keep writing down things that I need to do and then I keep a tick mark so that I have some kind of a thought process that, okay, so I have achieved at least 30%. So I think you need to have that instant gratification because what is to be done is so much. But if you start doing, you will start doing it. Thank you.
Just, coming back to the original question, when we look at implementing AI using it, the reality is that there are always structural limitations that we have in society around us. And sometimes the outcomes of AI-driven actions can perpetuate these unfairness or limitations which exist, and this is a fact. So the way that several companies address this is they try to objectively ascertain if there are any biases in a decision. For example, when it comes to HR, are you more likely to select a candidate who is like you? And what I mean by like can be, does he speak my language? Is he from the same college? Or is it from the same background, etc.? Are you likely to do this? Now, with the data that we have, with the list of all the candidates that are getting interviewed, this happens. Or sometimes it happens in performance ratings or promotion recommendations. Now, each of these areas, and probably not the tone that we wanted this discussion to be, but each of these are real, they are present. So it becomes very imperative that technology does not become a divider or does not perpetuate any limitations that do exist, but it also kind of takes us beyond this. We should be able to see the value that we can get from people. Now, the second thing that I would also mention, especially about mental health, right now, there are different kind of learning disabilities or people's inability to deal with technology. We don't talk about it, but it's also possible there could be a person who is limited in terms of using AI just because of, I don't know, the mental makeup or something. Now, in the way that we are going, that everybody has to be AI-enabled and AI-friendly, it's possible that we may be looking at a new thing coming up in the future as to, making it positive for people who are, let's say, AI challenged, for lack of a better word. So this is also something that comes up. But again, this is not a new problem. This is an old problem, even in the days of, let's say, data science or machine learning. Let's say in banking, when you would look at how do you decide creditworthiness of a customer, you are more likely to be rejected a loan just because your particular cohort has a large number of defaults in the past. So there have been cases, there are several even published instances about this, but this is something that many companies are consciously trying to avoid. And this is where the human in the loop again comes in handy, because if there are biases, it could be because of the humans, but if the algorithm is coming up with a bias, it takes a human eye to kind of identify that.
So let me just add a little on this whole bias issue. Normally we associate biases with human beings, right? Or with personalities in some sense. There is some personness which is leading to the biases. But one of the challenges with the implementation of these AIs or these algorithms is that the same biases that are there can now get into the system, but because they are in the system, you see them as impersonal and therefore, in some sense, not biased. This is a common saying that we have, that let's go by the data, let's not go by your intuition, right? But when you said that if you belong to a cohort and that cohort itself, it's a data again, right? So some of those biases can get into the data itself and then be not seen as the bias, which then makes the bias actually, the bias doesn't go away, but it appears as non-bias, and it can, in some sense, is actually a little more insidious than the first one. For two reasons. One, you don't see it as a bias. Two, that it is now operating at a scale that you didn't have before, right? So if what is that companies are doing, etc., if any of you have any comments on that, that would be great. Yeah.
So there was this interesting job advert in 2012 in the Bay Area. They said that they're looking for coding superheroes, right? Coding superheroes, and the job advert was there for almost a week, and they had to kind of look at the data. They did not have a single female applicant for that job advert, right? So what could be the reason? So superheroes in general is a male dominated word, right? So we don't know. So sometimes we make that. So I'm sure the hiring leader would have not even thought about this. There is a product called text.io. You put all your JDs into that, it'll actually make it gender neutral. And that's an agentic AI framework, right? So it's just not as simple as we think about it, right? There are so many parameters now. We have to be, and I'm sure many of you are seeing there is a privacy statement, there's a statement on, POSH and all that is coming because of all of that, right? So technology, the way it is adopted is that, for example, if you're making those conscious and unconscious decisions, technology can help you. That was one of the examples that we had. And I think after that, they started using that text.io, and that has become the name and fame of all of it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So let's now move into the future. So what is career? I think this whole question of how do you see careers evolving as we move into the future, let's say by 2030, what would be a career, or any comments on how careers would evolve as we go ahead?
So in my view, every career is a tech career. At least that's what I feel. You are given a problem. You have functional way of solving using technology. That's because I think 10 years, 15 years back, if you are functionally able to explain it to a technological person, and the person can explain that and build a software for you, you are able to solve it. But then if somebody can actually also enable engineering for that, not doing coding, but enable engineering for that, is the one that who will have a lot of options in the market. That's my view.
I would, sorry, Abraham, I couldn't just hold myself, I would add two different important aspects to that. And that is, and I really like the way that you said every job, technical job, because today when I'm hiring at CXO level, or when you at some point in your career, when you started it off, when you were across, the interviews with a panelist at your university, every single time you are required to be technical in your approach. You're required to be more technical about interpreting your curriculum, applying whatever that you're interpreting and you're learning into a very technical way. Same exactly is the case that it applies even at a CXO level. So every job is going to be technical, and I fully agree to that, because no longer are we just talking about a job as a matter of a set of transactions and your responsibility to deliver those transactions. I think if you're not technical enough to be able to understand it from point A to point Z in its own value chain with a purpose sitting on top of it, you're missing the bus. Then it becomes more like some of these banking clerks sort of a job that we have always heard of. where they're more transactional, because that is how it really served the enterprises at that point, and that was good enough. But today, when you look at the same jobs, they've evolved a lot, or probably they are, there are some organizations that are still catching up. So technical orientation is going to be extremely critical in every single job, to answer that question specifically by the 2030, because it's also, just to add a reference, is that one of the big fours is already, given that in their research, is 1 billion people need to really go through massive reskilling by 2030. And that's a reality. And this was a report which was in 2022. We are in 2025. So that number, I'm not at all surprised if that number now has gone from 1 billion to probably much higher than that.
And we have heard about the content of a career. Just like to draw your attention to two more aspects. One is the duration of a career. So assuming that you're in your 20s now and you're going to be working till 60, gone are the times when you could be in the same area or the same domain for the next 30 or 40 years. All of you will have to expect at least 2 to 3 pivots, mostly hard ones, during the course of a career. And this could be technology related, or it could also be interest related. Now, the second thing is, even in organizations which traditionally have a pyramid structure, where you do a thing and then the best among you get promoted to the next level and the next level and so on. This has also changed significantly in terms of, the need to have people who have skills which transcend multiple verticals. So most corporations, companies, etc., actively encourage rotations across domains, across functions also, so as to develop an internal talent pool also. So basically, when you do such a thing, the matching of an applicant to a job, you might not have any experience in that particular function or that particular field, but then there will be several other aspects that get matched. And there are companies that I know of, and some projects I've worked on also, where we use AI to do this matching. That is, how do you match a person's potential to the performance requirements of a new position? So careers, in the traditional sense, yes, they will continue. I would just say the duration may change, but a lot more opportunities are also opening up, especially if you're willing to look diagonally across the organization.
That reminds, sorry,
Basically,
again, I could not
depth
control.
and width.
Sorry. So there's something called as job architecture. I don't know how many of you have heard of about it in your respective organization at any given point of time. And that job architecture, then further in one of my last organization, I remember that they have really beautifully come up, Professor, with a tool that would really help you to navigate alternative career paths from where you are today into a certain job profile. And I'm consciously using the word job profile that we just spoke of some time back, because it's talking about the competencies and the level of proficiency you have on those competencies. It's not about a job description. So if I say that I'm a solution architect, example in a technological, career that way, and if I go and I just say that I'm at a assistant manager level, and I put all the details, whatever that it is asking over there, it'll immediately give me a navigation path to A, B, C as the alternative career paths. This is something which is now happening more prevalent with many of these other organizations, and that's where Abraham was touching upon, is that I am working today as a data scientist, or rather as a supply chain manager in one organization. I could probably explore a data scientist career path, which is completely different to in a completely different industry altogether, and many such permutation combinations could be there.
So I have I think I wanted to just say what you wanted to say, but then I add some color to it. One is a technology landscape, domain landscape, skill landscape, right? So you will, if you have worked in supply chain management, then into HR, then into finance, that's a great way of, thing. Same thing is if you worked in supply chain management in a pharma company, then you got into a finance kind of a role and maybe a healthcare kind of company, then you got into tech company and doing something else. That's also great, right? So you might have to look at how you have to transition from these roles, because you're talking about transition from domain standpoint also, transition from technology standpoint also, transition from industry standpoint also. So if you're always curious about all of these models, you will always figure out a reason to do what you want to do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, because it seemed a little contradictory when you emphasized on technical jobs, tech jobs, especially in an era where the tech ones are, in some sense, your technical skills are getting obsolete in some sense. So thank you for adding that.
So as a HR manager, I can throw some more light on that in just one line is that when we use the word technical, it's not limited to technology. Every job has a technical skills requirement and a technical competencies requirement. It could be, it even applies to the most unseemingly technology related role as well. So please keep that in mind always that when we say technical, it's about the intrinsic skill set that is required to perform that job.
Yeah, or to borrow Abraham's word, technique, I think the one you mentioned in the beginning, right? Yeah, so with this, I think we have largely covered the areas we intended to cover. Then I'll now leave the floor open to the audience for any questions if you have.
Hello, sir. Here. Yeah. My name is Anjali. I'm a PhD student, and my area of interest is AI and future work only. So, I mean, somewhere you talked more about augmentative AI, where human is always in the loop, but we didn't touch the agentic AI, where what if we take the data from the supermost consultant, suppose in a consultancy firm, and I train agent, my agentic AI on base of that data, and then it can actually replace the new hires at a very entry level.
So
So
you're
in
talking
that,
about a business idea which can become a company.
no, actually, companies are training using these data to train agentic AIs. So the replacement is there. This time, TCS also went for huge layoff. They're calling it cost cutting, but somewhere AI is behind that.
So let's not get into a TCS example for, I don't know, should I be talking about it, but then, so let me ask you this question. What is agent?
So agent, they'll have a specific role. So suppose one agent is for writing. So that agent will take that. The other is like you can take this job and then divide into smaller jobs and assign it to different other agents. So the way
No, you are
we have,
talking about workflow, but I understand.
yeah,
So who knows how agent should work?
yeah, definitely it would be trained by humans only.
So the guy who trained the agent will continue to be there.
Yeah,
The guy who was always doing the work that agent was doing earlier will get replaced. That's a simple answer.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add another point of view, what you're speaking about, agentic AI is largely about tasks that can have a higher degree of autonomy. So these would be autonomous agents. But in the entire workflow that you have, from data to the decision, it's possible that the initial data cleaning, processing, massaging, preparation, all that could be done in an automated, in autonomous way. But when it finally comes to taking a decision which could have a business impact, that is where, even today, we don't have systems which are, fully intelligent to that extent as to, pick one. So there, and it's also a bit about ownership because, governance was something that was addressed in the earlier panel too. Now we can talk about data governance, but AI governance is a whole different, ball game altogether. So in that sense, autonomous systems, to the extent they exist, is largely on the data side and not as much on the decision side.
If I understand your question correct, you were referring to an example of a consultancy and recruiters working there. So, to answer this in more holistic way, there are going to be some jobs momentarily that you will see that people, are losing their jobs. But to your question and to my, answer in some of the earlier questions is about when you say augmenting, it's also about you and I as recruiters working in that consultancy being able to manually or individually without AI be able to let's say example I'm making it up 100 profiles every single day, both of us. If we are, if we are trained or if we are starting to use AI to do the same task, probably we would be able to do that 10x, right? And therefore, that very limited job profile, you could see the requirement of that organization to bring it significantly down because they do not have as much, you know, volume of that task where you need 10 resources, as against, now they require just two. But that is just a journey. Let's put it in this way. The future is going to be more about those who embrace and are proficient in AI would rather replace those who do not. I think that might be the current situation. We could start articulating it that way. But that's not the end of it, because the more and more those who, let's say, be specific, those who are losing these jobs, and if they start learning more about applying AI to the specific applications that we are already starting to use, they will get a job elsewhere in doing exactly the similar set of tasks. And that's how we are evolving within the industry across the entire job architecture.
In fact,
Yeah,
I
I
can
think we
just
can
add
take
one
other
more.
questions if there are.
I'll just
there.
add one more aspect. If you have two CEOs who are working on the same problem statement, you will have one CEO who will be growth mindset, who will see that, okay, with 10 people, I'm able to do a 20 people job. Let me go and acquire more 20 clients, right? That is one growth mindset. The other mindset person, you know the answer, what that person will do, right? That's how it is.
Yeah. Yes, please go.
Hi, sir. This is Ayush. A moment ago, we were talking about rotation within the jobs. And won't that create more generalists rather than specialists? And won't the depth go missing in the process?
You're asking me?
Yeah. I
Yes.
think it's to the panel, perhaps. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the question is around depth versus breadth, perhaps.
See, I think I heard you as generalist versus specialist, right? See, initially, in initial stages of career, you definitely need to develop the depth that's needed to be able to do a job well enough. But then you would realize that the techniques that you have learned or the tools that you have, they can be used to solve problems which are analogous. That is, the problem may be in a different domain, but the basic construct is going to be the same. So whenever you know that, you would be able to switch from one to the other. Now, this is not like a must-do thing that everybody has to be a generalist. People are comfortable being specialists. People are comfortable being generalists. So the important thing is discover whatever gives us comfort in our personal careers and then stick to it. Because the way things are going, there's going to be room for both categories.
Hello. Yeah. Good afternoon, panel. It was very insightful to hear from the recruiters about that perspective. While we discussed about the benefits of AI, my question is related to the other side of boundary. That while more and more AI and data is being used for employee motivation, employee benefits, how can we differentiate between surveillance and insight?
He's there. Yeah, could you please raise your hand? Because I think maybe that gives
Okay.
some personal touch.
Sorry, I could not really quite comprehend your
So,
question, if you
so
can.
So I think it's more about data privacy,
it's,
confidentiality, and yeah, go ahead.
maybe I could
If
just
it's
start
question.
answering this. See, given that we all use smartphones and we are all on at least more than 2 or 3 social media platforms, there isn't much about us that isn't known. Now, the question is, would you consider a targeted ad from Google, the browser that you use, would you consider that surveillance? Or would you consider an organization knowing some significant event in your life that's happened? Or, how do people at your age group behave with a significant life event? Would you consider a customized message there as surveillance? So the issue here is, by virtue of signing up to a lot of digital platforms, we've already signed away a lot of our anonymity, which is a fact. Now, I think the bigger worry should not be about surveillance or what's happening. It should be about ensuring that, if we are conscious about, maintaining a certain profile or a certain image in public, we should be a little careful about our social media personas that we adopt. And this is not just in a social media or in a personal setting, but even in a professional setting, the information that you share with the organization. For example, the PII, or the personally identifiable information, almost all organizations say that you cannot really take a decision using that, which actively discriminates one against the others. MNCs, etc., or ones with a significant ownership outside India have a much stronger rule on this. But now, given that the entire world economy is heavily interconnected, almost all companies adopt this.
And that is what also it is all about AI governance. And there are many organizations which are putting in, robust standards to address that very specifically, where the systems are more responsible, explainable, fair, transparent, and that it doesn't really have any unbiased interpretation to create discriminative sort of scenarios.
See, and it swings both ways. If there is clear evidence of a bias or an action for a bias, it's also easier now for the person against whom that action was taken to prove that there was a bias with data itself.
I think things are still evolving on this particular aspect because, as I pointed out, this is an aspect of AI governance, and there is a regulatory aspect to that. And as Abraham pointed out, in the case of India, the regulations haven't yet evolved to that stage. Perhaps we're, more modern companies or forward-looking companies, could perhaps look at what's happening outside India, especially where this tech is evolving very rapidly, especially Europe, where privacy is taken much more seriously, and in US, where at least some regulations are there in countering this whole notion of surveillance. Right? Yeah. Any other question? Yes.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
So my name is Indumati, and my question is to Amit, sir. Sir, while your talk, you mentioned about a technology which assess a particular skill set and help you transitioning in your career. Can you please throw more lights on it?
It was not about technology. It was a internal Java-based application that we had in my earlier organization. Of course, I can't take the name for obvious reasons, but if I remember, it was based on Java, and it was nothing but a job architecture, and we used to call it as a career navigator tool that used to run on that job architecture, taking the data input from there, and then it used to give you certain fields which you enter as a matter of your preference, your core area of expertise, your background, where you have spent most of your career so far into, and then that used to really process that information and give you therefore A, B, C, three alternatives, rather than telling you, starting to get more prescriptive and telling you that this is what you're going to be doing well at in your career if you switch your career to starting, from a solution architect to probably become an account manager in sales. So that was it, but it was not anything specific, or it was probably, if it was built using some different technology, the output was expected very similar.
So I'm Shobna. My question is to Mr. Raju. You had mentioned in the beginning that the resumes are more.
Yeah, may I request you to please raise your hand, otherwise we are finding it.
I can see her.
That's good.
Yeah, the resumes are more to be ATS friendly resume and AI friendly resume. If you can just elaborate more on that.
So nowadays job descriptions are passed, and they become a little bit of pre-screening questions for the job description from a ATS standpoint. So for example, let's take the simple example that you should be from the Premier Institute, right? Now Premier Institutes have 10, 15, 20, whatever that number is, right? Now that tagging is not happening from a resume standpoint. Even though you're studying in an IIM Lucknow, it will not connect you, right? That is one example. Second example is, at least 5 years back, companies used to say that if you have not got 75% throughout your career, don't apply. Now there are two scenarios. Scenario A, somebody's got 70, 72 and all that, it will automatically be thrashed out. Somebody has not put the details of those percentages. It will understand that you have not got it, right? Now, on top of it, now that was ATS friendly. Now we are talking about AI friendly, right? AI friendly resume is, for example, if you look at a JD, it says Python, it says SQL, it says 4 or 5 things. Ideally, what you should look at is your Python, which is the first line of the job description, should have more instances in your resume. Then slowly it comes down. So that makes it ATS friendly. It understands that there's a pattern. Yes, this person is good. Obviously, after that, the interview happens, and then you have to crack those interviews. So the way I tell a lot of people is that look at top 5, 5 or 6 lines of the JD. You make your profile in such a way, not doctoring, it's like actually tailoring, There's a difference between doctor and training. I don't want to get there. You have to ensure that all the aspects of the JD are covered in some form or shape in your profile, makes it AI friendly and ATS friendly so that at least you get a call. Once you get a call, you know what to do, right? So it's just that, right? That's the difference between ATS and AI friendly.
If I may add an important point I feel from an HR perspective, and this comes to me probably ever since, you know, when we were not talking about AI so much or any other technology or transformation or anything at all in singularity. When you build your profile, and I have advised this, like I've lost the count how many times, I see that there is a very, very um, innate perspective and a very, very consistent perspective that all of us we have grown with. Because I have seen Professor CV and I just loved that CV and therefore I want my CV just to be like that. And we just keep following that throughout our career, knowingly and unknowingly. How many, and we don't really have a business as to how, you know, one of you coming from a different industry, how does your profile come along? It could be because they have liked somebody, you know, their own professor at some point of time. And that's how we just keep doing that. But please, maybe try doing this as an experiment with yourself after this session when you go back home. And that is, ask yourself 3 genuine questions, and you don't really have to discuss that with anyone, and try finding the answers to yourself. Is that going into the CV? What are those? Number 1, are you talking about your CV just covering the responsibilities that you're delivering about your job? I would say that's a super big injustice that you're doing to yourself. The second question, are you really bringing out any numerical sense into whatever that you're talking about, whether from a responsibility standpoint or from an accomplishment standpoint? Third, are you giving any reference scale to what you're actually delivering, the quantum of that, the complexity that you're dealing with? What are the other leadership aspects? Where have you really gone way outside of your conventional job responsibilities or your role outline? And if your CV is really not answering these 3 questions in a positive sense, you really have got to work on your CV from scratch.
Nicely put, thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
My name is Atul, and my question is somewhat linked to what was also discussed in the morning, where I think one of the panelists spoke about how it's challenging to move from proof of concept ideas to large-scale transformations, and 70% of the challenges may be people-related challenges. So I was also wondering, like, based on what we discussed, what was discussed in this panel, like, are you observing that when we talk about upskilling with AI, are employees or just human beings becoming more inward looking, like focusing on how they can improve their productivity versus how human beings can collaborate and possibly improve productivity of organizations? So my basic question is, how do one human beings upskill themselves to deal better with other human beings? And at the same time, how are organizations preparing for that? And how are HR teams preparing for that? Is that also something that, that basically my question is related to that. Like, how do we upskill in terms of dealing with other human beings in this age where a lot of, upskilling is focused more maybe possibly inward looking or technology driven? So yeah.
So my personal view is a two-pronged approach. One is organization way of looking at it. Organizations, what they can do is that not just basically making people proud about what they've learned, but then they have to create a learning ecosystem so that everyone should actually start thinking about learning. For you, it should be like an opportunity that, hey, this can bring in additional aspects to my profile. And that should be your driver, right? And I'm sure, if you are thinking about your next level of version for yourself, that should be a 101% of your version, right? So that is how you look at your own personality. But then organizations should create that conducive environment to actually make people to adopt this technology and not push technologies to them, right? They have to make some case studies about it. They have to talk about it, change management, most importantly, if required, reward. I am not a great fan of rewarding good performance to that extent, at least on this concept, because it can actually also go wrong, but then I think do that. So organization has to play a multiple role because it is understandable that this is required. How fast you can take it forward is what the question is.
I think we'll take a last question now. Yes, the gentleman at the last.
Yeah, hi. My name's Rishi. My question is primarily for Mr. Amit. In our keynote speaker, Mr. Chunmai, he told us that going forward, human emotional intelligence is something that the companies are looking for, and rightly so, because if agentic AI is becoming, it's the decision maker and executing in real time. Which human skills should we prioritize, specifically from an HR perspective? Like, are we looking for technical upskilling in technical literacy, or doubling down on our creativity, judgment, and the emotional intelligence aspect of it?
I would say all of that, what you said, and I think thanks for beautifully putting all of that together. I mean, I think we've really spoken a lot about it, that AI is an enabler. It's, rather than seeing AI as a replacer, we should look at that more from an augmenting lens. And third is where we're talking about, it's all the more the time for we to be focusing on more and more human skills, which we used to some point last 3-4 years back in the past, we used to attribute them as soft skills. But they are now, Professor himself at least, reiterated those words at least a couple of times when he said adaptability, creative thinking, strategic point of view, empathy. I think it's going to be all of that is what you will have to really look at that in inculcating within yourself to probably pick up an extension from what Raju said is about really taking you from version 1 to version 2. I would really add, two different analogies, within the same context. Probably it helps you, to pick that back as an answer and apply that to your understanding is, me and my boss, we used to discuss this, and I was talking to professor also sometimes, and that is, in my team, there were quite a few recruiters. And we used to really, we were required like every single year in terms of our performance management reviews and all of that. And we used to actually discuss that. How would we really scale somebody at a X level of proficiency and then somebody X minus 1 level of proficiency? Do we go by the number of years of experience somebody has? Do we go by just what the person has delivered this year as? Do we just look at what has been delivered in terms of complete objectivity? Or do we also look at how that has been delivered? So, coming back to the analogy aspect of it, keep asking yourself this important question. If all of you guys are recruiters here, I'm just using that as, an example. Assume that all of you guys have 10 years experience in your career. The question that you need to ask yourself, are you a 1-year experience recruiter 10 times? Or you are actually a 10 years experience recruiter? Because both of these profiles are going to appear very different. Now, you replace that recruiter as a job profile with any job that you have ever been into, whether you were into supply chain or communication or a technology professional or whatever. That's one part. The other part is very, very important, and that is you being very self-aware to move from a pyramid sort of a structure in an organization to a diamond, where you do not really lose out or sort of lose out on your subject matter expertise depth and continue to leverage and build onto it as you add more experience to your profile and to your career, but you actually go even wider. So if you have a value chain from point A to point Z and you have a job which is like addressing a part of it somewhere, let's say if this is the delta, you really need to go much wider to that to remain more and more relevant beyond your subject matter expertise in the industry that you're operating into. If that answers your question.
Right. So with this, we'll stop right now. What I'll try to do is a quick recap more than a recap, I'll try to kind of reiterate some words which all the panel members here have used. So I'll just state those words and I'll leave it to you to kind of figure out what they actually mean. So one, I think, building on what Abraham said about digital dexterity, learnability, and curiosity. These were the three words that he used. And from your talk about spotting opportunities, distinguishing them between good and great. At the same time, also looking at newer opportunities while exploiting the current opportunities that you have. Perhaps those of you familiar with strategy would look at it as ambidextrity there. Then the notion of replacing AI as replacing versus augmenting, and more importantly there, that all of us, instead of getting scared, perhaps need to take the approach of embracing AI, where I think, again, I'll go back to Abraham's example about the horse versus the tractor. So as a horse, perhaps you are going to lose the job to the other horse, which learns to use the tractor. Then from Amit's points about, one is this notion of dealing with these anxieties in an uncertain world where things are so rapidly changing every day. How do you cope with new kind of developments in AI and how do you learn that? Which he described beautifully as change fatigue, and where he talked about agile learning, but learning, reducing that, breaking that learning into small, small bites so that you're not overwhelmed with the entire changes that are happening and what you need to learn at a overall level. And then again, Raju's point about cognitive flexibility, right? Both in the spheres of what you already know versus also in those spheres where you do not know. Are you flexible enough there? And then we talked about the future of those careers, about what would make them more, what would stick and how we should look at it. So there was some confusion about what is technique and or technical jobs. I think, again, I think Amit beautifully put it about job architectures, thinking about moving away from this notion of job descriptions which are more rigid towards job profiles and job architectures, right? Yeah, so these are broadly the points that I could think of. If any of you want to kind of quickly add anything there, then perhaps you're done. Any closing remarks that you would like to give?
Nothing, I think stay hungry, stay foolish.
Thank you, and it was wonderful catching up with all of you guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So I take this opportunity once again to thank all the three panelists for taking the time to come here and share their knowledge and experience with all of us. Thank you very much.
We sincerely thank you, our panelists and professor, for conducting such thought-provoking panel discussion and use. Yeah, you have a question? Yeah, please. Do ask. You have a mic? Yes.
I heard that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dharma. I just have one last question. On behalf of batch 19, if I don't ask this question, they'll kill me. So I'm asking, how do we get all of you find this batch attractive enough to give them jobs?
That did sound like a question. It sounded like you are coming back, right? So
Yeah. I thought there was an answer. So we just want you to think hard on them. They're really, really nice. They're becoming nicer with time.
so I can give you an
Thank
example. So from the time I came to till now, I think almost 17 people have asked me for a connection. 6 of them asked me for a career advice. 4 of them told that I will do something for you. I was thinking, oh my God. So you guys, I have not got this kind of an experience anywhere else. So which means these guys are on safe hands. So don't worry about it.
To add to that, and you really made me think about it, I just did not want to give you a very generic answer. There's one competency that has always fascinated me, and I've been asked this question many a times about what's my philosophy in talent acquisition. And my answer has always been very consistent, is that how aligned am I to my organization's strategic tactical priorities along with my business stakeholders' priorities as well. If I'm managing my business stakeholders' deliverables, probably I'm doing my job very well. But if I'm just working with what are my set of responsibilities and what my job looks like on the surface of it, probably I'm just like one of those hundreds and thousands in the group. Now, if you're saying that you really want to set yourself, to be like really attractive to be hired, that commercial mindset needs to be there right on top of, your pitch, the way that you really carry yourself. The second part is where you really have to go out of the way. And when I say that, what I mean is, and I'm talking serious business here, is about really building certain real-time um, value themes about a particular topic, about a business topic or a business problem statement that you could pick it up from one of your mentors or industry connects and really try to build a real-time solution on that. Take feedback, work on it again, take feedback, work on it again, to the time where somebody comes and says that this is pretty good. When you start doing that, you are actually into the job much ahead of the curve. One of the things that what I have learned back then in my, from my first CEO is that always make sure that at any given point of time, you have the role following you and not the other way around. As long as you're managing that in your career, you keep rocking.
Just to add one final point on this, I have interacted with quite a few of you during our sessions and breaks in between. The fact that you are from IMC itself makes you way attractive to any potential hirer. That's the reality of India. A premier institute, it has that. Now, the second thing, just again, building on what Amit said, grit and acumen. These are the two things that will differentiate. Now, if you're comparing yourself with somebody who's from another institute, definitely you're ahead of the game. But if you compare among each other, then what really differentiates is, what is that extra that you have done? For example, if it's learnability, what have you learned beyond what the course is teaching or beyond what the program is? What have you done beyond this? And how much of grit have you demonstrated in terms of pushing through a tough challenge or a tough problem? These two things, your grit and the acumen that you show in terms of being able to express the outcomes in business relevant language. These two will make all the difference.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for asking this question, and thank you very much for sharing your feedback. And I think we can really build on that and take our value proposition to next level, definitely. And after that, I would like to just say that the insight you really shared covered all the landscape of skill change that we are experiencing in today's AI-driven world. And I think we can deeply appreciate that the time and wisdom you shared with us. We can definitely reflect on this and can build on that and can really prepare ourselves for the next phase of hiring, the change in hiring that we are seeing. So with this, I would like to call on stage our latest team to facilitate Professor Dharma, our moderator for this panel. Yeah, yes. But still, that will be only a moderator too. Okay. So now I would like to call on stage our volunteers. I'd like to call on stage Santini to facilitate Mr. Amit Deo. Please give a huge round of applause for Mr. Amit Deo. I would like to call on stage Chaitali to come on stage and facilitate Mr. Abraham. Please give a huge round of applause for Mr. Abraham. I would like to call on stage Rishikesh to come on stage and facilitate Mr. Vishwanath. Thank you. Great, great, good. Great. Great. I think we have come close to the conclave with the back-to-back keynote speeches and thought-provoking panel discussion. Now I would like to invite our chairperson, Pragyan ma'am, to come on stage and deliver a closing remark.
All right. We'll do a huge round of applause for each one. Ek second. One by one. So first it's Ketan. Please come up here. Big round of applause for Ketan. Fair Amog, please. Yeah. Chaliye, Rajat, please. Akshay, idhar aaye. And Priyansh. They did a fantastic job and great moderation. This time prepared without reading. Give them a very big round of applause. Right? And to batch 19 overall, apne aap ko standing ovation, please, for, come on, everyone. Of course, the MBX office, without you, nothing is possible. So a big round of applause to them. They're here or not, I can't see them, but yes. Oh, they're there? Yeah. A very big round of applause, please. Right? And to all our dignitaries, could we give them a really, really big round of applause? And of course, to our alums who've made it, who've come here. So Padam, idhar aaye. Abhishek from the background, please, to the front. Shaumik, please. And Rajdeep, are you there? Yes, he left. Whoever is there, please come up. Right? And? Oh, yes, Amit. Where are you, Amit? And even more because he's been part of the gifts. Give him a big, big round of applause. He's more than just being the alum, he's almost part of hosting the whole thing. Right? And the final takeaway is that with all the AI, the one thing that we kept hearing is what? EQ, empathy, human ethics. So batch 19, next exam, particularly objective exam office, we should not invigilate. They'll be very ethical and do the exam really, really well. Give them a big round of applause on that note, right? Chalo. Thank you, and I think over to the Lattice team. Akshay Singh, over, ma'am. Kafi hai.
Both of them are working. And a very big round of applause for Chairperson Professor Pragyan. Standing ovation. Standing ovation.
Keep at it, keep at it.
एक दो लाइन बोल के
हाँ आ जाओ
Okay, so coming to an end to the day of our event, certainly packed, and I would like to really thank all of you for your time, for your energy through the day. On behalf of the Lattice committee and the MBX batch of IIM Calcutta, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to all our speakers, panelists, faculty, and guests for making today's conclave a success. A very big thank you goes to our batch and especially our volunteers for their tireless efforts behind the scenes.
Since I have the stage here, so a big thank you to the SNC team here. I really want to appreciate them for their efforts. All the creativity that you see. Big thanks to the CRs, yes, supporting us. Big thanks to all the leads that you guys gave. All of you gave some leads. Most of them converted. The speakers are here because of that. So big thanks to all of that. Yes. Now the real challenge for Sturt-C as well. So as we all know that the evening is going to culminate in the cultural events. The first one is the stand-up comedian, Puneet Pania's event. And the challenge for Sturt-C and all of us basically is to bring in more and more people to attend the concert. From first the 90 should be here and then 90 plus into or whatever you can do. So yeah, thanks thanks to all of you for making this event a great success. पैसे देने के लिए भी. So yeah, it was a great time today, guys. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
And on an ending note on a business conclave, we have high tea outside. So please enjoy your coffee and some snacks.